Hello and welcome to the Savage Movie Night Podcast. Today we are continuing to talk all about the 2021 anime Belle. I'm your heavily sponsored vigilante doxing people as retribution because official moderation apparently isn't a thing that exists. Host Adam. Joining me, as always, is my Ohio is everywhere and there is no escaping it co-host Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Adam.
And, of course, the show isn't complete without our smart enough not to sing love songs to children on the internet co-host, Rob. Hi, Rob.
I did one time. What's going on, Adam?
And that's why you're not allowed back in Albuquerque.
True.
So, it's a new year. What are some of the things you guys are looking forward to this year in 2025?
Well, there's always new things to discover within media, obviously new music, new books, new movies, all kinds of things. So I'm always looking forward to see what's to come, what people come up with. I always like finding new favorites. And also, I'm going to be 30 this year, big milestone. And I know a lot of people see it as like a bad thing, but I don't know. I kind of see it as a new era for myself. So I am looking forward to seeing what my 30s bring.
Yeah, no, I would, looking forward to you turning 30 and making me feel a little less old.
I don't know, man. You got a whole decade on me still.
Decade plus, yeah. I whether it's turning 30 or turning 40, I think, it's overrated. It's just another day, that your age, your decade is what you make of it. So. I think you're going to have a good time and enjoy yourself in your 30s.
Those boomers are always so worried about their age.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm one of the things I'm looking forward to in the next year is my age will be the answer to life, the universe, and everything. So, that's exciting.
I think it's about personal growth, not so much a number, but the personal growth part. However, I do have a goal. I'm still working on that 6-pack. I've got like a 1-pack at the moment, but I'm working on it.
Yeah,
2025 is your year.
This is it. It's going down.
I'm always working on my beach bod. I am much closer to my beach bod than I was, when I was Kristen's age. That's for sure. But, for me, I am also, outside of personal growth kind of stuff, looking forward to whoever the new Bears coach is going to be because fingers crossed it should be an improvement and that they draft an offensive line in the off season. So that's part of what I'm looking forward to.
I may have dialed into the wrong podcast.
Yeah, no,
that is a whole other conversation that'll take way too long.
Yeah. No, normally we do not talk about the Bears here, because you watch the Bears, you drink the beers, you cry to tears because they are not very good. But like you said, that's a whole nother thing, and we still got to figure out where that new stadium is going to be. So we're going to stop talking about the Bears, get back into our normal voice. And, because on today's podcast, we are going to learn how to convert from Japanese yen to US dollars, just how recent 2021 was, and a secret third thing. Because today, we're talking all about the anime Belle. But first, a word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor is No Regrets, the music and spirit of Billie Holiday, an in-depth 13-episode radio and live streaming series celebrating Billie Holiday's extraordinary musical legacy. The program explores her early life, groundbreaking singing style, and the powerful impact of Strange Fruit on the civil rights movement. It is produced by the award-winning Steve Robinson and written by NEA Jazz Grandmaster and host of Jazzology, Willard Jenkins. No Regret is narrated by Rhonda Hamilton. The series features interviews with Angela Davis, Cassandra Wilson, Beth Roars, Andromeda Toure, Phil Schaap, Dan Morgenstern, and many more. All episodes of No Regrets, the music and spirit of Billie Holiday, are now ready for you to stream on savagecontent.com/no-regrets. That's savagecontent.com/no-regrets. And now, back to the show. This is part 2 of the look at the 2021 anime reimagining of Beauty and the Beast, Belle. If you haven't listened to part 1, pause and go listen to that before coming right back here. But in case you don't, or you just need a refresher, previously we were introduced to the U, a virtual social media platform where people create avatars tied to their biometrics. And then we were introduced to Suzu Naito in her third year of high school and learned about her and some of the other people in her high school, establishing the relationships between them, all Degrassi-like. And that was kind of it. So now we are ready to dive back in. Kristen, take us through the plot.
So the next part in the movie here is Suzu walking home from school, and we get a montage of precious memories that she has with her mother, who is no longer with her. And in those memories, we see her finding a love of music, learning to play the piano by an app on her phone. And then we also learn from the flashbacks that when Suzu was really young, she witnessed her mother rescue a girl from a flooding river at the cost of her own life. And this was obviously very traumatizing for Suzu, and she has this kind of growing resentment for her mom for abandoning her, quote unquote, for a stranger's child. She doesn't understand why a stranger would be more important than her own child, essentially. And so in the wake of her mother's death, she's lost this passion for singing and songwriting that she once had. She's very distant from her father, distant from a lot of things. We really only see her very, very close with her friend Hiro. And that it even shows even more as she's kind of dragged to karaoke by her classmates, and it's just chaos and everyone's wanting her to sing, and she panics, she runs out, she just can't do the social thing very well. And on her walk home, she tries to sing, and every time she tries, she gets choked up, and then eventually she vomits. And while she's vomiting over the side of this bridge that she's walking on, beautiful visual, even though it's a sad moment, we do see a message from Hiro talking about the virtual world you. And so this is her introduction a bit to the rest of the plot of where we're going.
Yeah, there's, I want to talk about the mom for a second, but real quick, as far as like how they did this part, I thought that this was really cool to see. I know this is a part of everyone's growing up now, but for those that are older and social media came in later in their lives, I thought for a cartoon, for an animation, especially to capture like someone, a young person, whatever age, teenager or preteen, going through bouts of insecurity, going through things that they're going through, to see how social media becomes possibly an outlet, an answer, or a tool for them to grow or get hurt by. It's something kind of cool to see the way that was done.
Yeah, it's really nice how they showcase. This will go on to showcase the positives and negatives of social media in general and technology in general. But I also thought some of it was interesting. Like I think as a story beat, it's very interesting for the daughter to have resentment towards the mom and feel like she abandoned her. What was interesting to me was the disconnect I had from then how they portrayed society, the outer world responding to her mother's act, which I think was different than how it would be portrayed in an American movie. Because in the movie itself, there are a lot of comments talking about like saying what Suzu is thinking internally, that her mother abandoned. Why would you abandon your own child to save someone else's? Why would you be so stupid trying to do that? Blah blah blah. Whereas I think in an American film, all the comments would be about like
Her
the
being a
mother
hero or something.
being a hero, praising her, and all that. And I think that could have created a nice internal conflict where everybody's talking about how great your mother is, but you're feeling this giant resentment and coming to terms with that.
And honestly, you could maybe argue that the reason why she feels that way is because of all these comments, like because of the
Mhm.
environment that she's in, that maybe she just kind of, it feeds into the resentment. She already was thinking it, and then having it like said by other people just makes it worse. And she's obviously feeling very alone. She doesn't really have this close relationship with her father as much as she did with her mother. And so, I mean, when you have that close relationship, you feel lost, obviously. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I could like you can see where she's coming from with some of the
Yeah.
resentment.
Yeah,
Even
well,
though it's
but
like not necessarily founded, but that is a big core part of the film and her arc as well. So
yeah,
like it, yeah,
but also, like, to be fair to her father seems like a very good father who is trying to be there for his child without being overly bearing, and he sees she is struggling, he just doesn't know how to reach her. It's not like he is just distant or a shell. He is trying to be there, trying to be warm and open. Is just she is closed off and he doesn't know how to get through to her.
I thought also there's moments where most animation from the West, I think, would be hurry to fill some gaps. This movie, and some of it might be because of translations and whatnot, but it does use space a lot, like time, like moments of time and space, and even a few quiet moments where you're almost like you're not struggling, but you're imagining what the character is left thinking or dealing with. Um, One thing I want to mention, because I thought that the scene with the mom was really good. And so the mom actually, the person who voices Suzu's mom is an actress by the name of Shimamoto. Uh, Sumi Shimamoto is a Japanese actress who listeners might recognize from her voice work in the Studio Ghibli films Nasaka of the Valley of the Wind and Princess Monoke. I can never say that right. I can't do it.
almost Mononoke. You almost had it, but yeah,
Mononoke.
very, very, very cool that she ends up in some of the like overlap for that. Because I think even if you aren't an avid anime watcher, a lot of people are at least familiar with Studio Ghibli films. Maybe not these two necessarily. Totoro tends to be one of the more popular ones, but yeah, very cool that there's that connect there. And and it's a very brief clip, the montage, but I'll tell you those few minutes they elicited an emotion from me. Like I was like already feeling sad, knowing what was coming.
Yeah, I mean, to give the audience a bit of a touchstone if they haven't seen this movie, kind of think similar to the opening montage in Up, you know,
Right,
where
emotional damage.
it not only does, but it tells a simple story within just a few minutes that really hits you emotionally. So, that's one side of it. Rob, I know you talked about the use of space and subtlety that you don't typically see in a Western animated movie. And I think that gets into some of what we were talking about in part one, which is, the differences between anime and, Western animation, which is Western animation for all its changes and advancements is still geared towards more of a general or child friendly audience, whereas anime will sometimes focus more on adults and is not afraid to you know, go into things, to be more subtle, to do, more artistic things with storytelling and visualization and stuff that may be considered, not that the content itself is mature, but that those storytelling approaches are considered too mature because they're afraid, kids might not get it or something. Well, you know, with anime, they're less worried about kids getting it. They're more worried about if the rest of the audience is going to get it.
Yeah, for sure. I think one little example, just for the audience, real quick, is the realization. There's a moment before there's a realization that her mom passed away, and that quiet part is very effective. Like it's just kind of like you're left with, is she about to cry? Did her mom just die? And then you get the verification that that's just what happened. And to your point, yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, while we're talking about stylization, I wanted to bring up the way the color scheme works in this because, especially within like the regular world versus the U world, we'll get into the U world a little later. But even with the karaoke scene, there's just like this dichotomy between like the bland coloring of her walking home alone with a lot of like neutral colors, and then there's like the chaos of the karaoke room, and then obviously the virtual world should be using more is very bright and very vibrant, and it's kind of like supposed to be this like this messaging, I guess, of like escaping into a different world, and also because she is feeling so like bland in her current world, in her reality. She's not doing great, essentially. And so I really like how they did that, how they are showing the kind of like bland coloring and how it's becoming an escape for her. It will be becoming an escape for her. So while we're talking about the coloring, let's start talking a little more about you, because now that she's got this text from Hiro, she signs in for the first time and she's appointed an avatar with pink hair and freckles. And this is done through the AI engine's biometric analysis. So at first she doesn't believe that it's her, that it scanned her. She thinks like, oh, they must have scanned Ruka by accident, who's next to me in the photo I shared. But then she sees the freckles and realizes, oh, it's me. So like that is kind of nice for her to kind of get a little confident in that way. And she names her avatar Belle, which is the English translation of her own name, as she says. And so when she places these earbuds in, something that is really cool, I really like that they did this, because it shows like the body sharing technology and a bit how it works. Her physical senses and her body controls are transported to the avatar. So, and then once she's logged in, once she's in her avatar body, she finds herself capable of being able to sing again. And the song she chooses is the one from the opening scene, Walk to School, that we heard in the beginning, Gales of Song. And so this is sung by Suzu as her Belle avatar. And after singing in the U world, she starts to blow up with over like 23 million followers and comments. And like as she's seeing this montage on screen the next day, like on her phone, seeing that she's blowing up, we hear the song Swarms of Song. And there's a lot of it just like flashes of different things on the screen that blowing up, her song's blowing up all over the place. People are wanting to find the song elsewhere to stream. They're feeling drawn to her. A lot of people are saying that it feels like she's singing directly to every individual listener, and that's really what is resonating with people. And she goes to talk to her friend Hiro to be like, oh my God, like what is going on? And Hiro basically appoints herself as Belle's manager and producer, and is like, if you want to become a hit on the music charts, you've got to like be a true star, and you don't have to worry about the haters, because Suzu is like really overwhelmed by mixed opinions about her. She's upset that not everybody likes her. And Hiro is like, yeah, that's essential to become a true star. You don't want just diehard fans. You want that in between stuff. And as she continues to kind of blow up in the world of you, people start referring to her as Belle with an E. So before she was Bell, and now people are calling her Belle with an E, which means beautiful in French.
And actually, her name, her Japanese name means Belle in Japanese, doesn't it?
Yes. So when she spelled it Bell, Suzu, I get, is Belle, like, like a ringing bell, essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is, like you said, where she creates her avatar. And I think they do mean to, with the character design and how they refer to her avatar's character later, I do think the algorithm or whatever, how her avatar was created, it ends up being an amalgamation of her and Ruka. Because everybody talks about how much her avatar looks like Ruka, and there's some speculation it is Ruka by other people later on. So, but like you said, the freckles, help her realize there is some of her in it. But that whole part was where, especially looking back on it, like I am so confused about how avatar creation works in this world, because it seemed like Suzu had no control over what her avatar looked like, where it seems like other people very much had choices in what their avatar looked like. So
I don't remember anyone seeming like they had choices. I mean, I guess you
well,
can
but I mean,
stylize
how
once
else?
you make it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying, because otherwise, how could Hero be a sprite and the Beast be a beast? That clearly they had to have some choice. It wasn't based on their actual physical appearance. And then the whole, doxing being a very big deal because it's going to reveal your true form, so I
Well,
was very,
remember, this is like pulling into who they are as people, which is why that one lady that comes later is like a literal baby, because she's just a crybaby.
yeah.
Like it's pulling like
So
what a bit of who they are inside. And
so the
so yeah,
biometric is essentially we're reading your soul and
right.
telling
That's
you
how I
who you
interpreted
really
it.
are. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I don't really think you can like edit it after the fact. I mean, you can stylize your character, but like yeah.
at this point and then throughout the film, one of the things that it does really well is because there's reference to a social media app that doesn't exist, what they do is they bring to life a lot of what one would normally see as comments that you read on a social media app. They bring it to life, and you hear the voices of these comments start to populate, start to spring up. You get to hear what the population has to say in response to everything that's going on and everything that Belle starts to go through. And it's very effective. And I think one of the reasons why it's so effective is that it also puts into perspective what a young person, especially a very young person, is one thing that I thought about, is just who's trying to come to get to know themselves, let alone everything that's going on in their lives. It's really interesting. It's really cool to see the crap that they have to deal with and how they deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you're online in a social setting like that, it's like everybody is picking everybody apart at all times and comparing themselves to every other person. And that was even clear with one of the other singers in the U platform, Peggy Sue. People were like, she was kind of like saying like, oh yeah, Belle isn't anything. And people were like agreeing with her. And then as soon as people were interested in Belle, they were calling her like a has-been right away, and just how fickle everybody can be with popularity. And I really like how they did that.
Sorry, I was going to just to further that. I think that there's a there's the old stigma about teenagers being hypersensitive about everything. But when you see this play out in social media, I can't blame them, because I too would be having a heart attack for every little thing that gets exposed or misinterpreted online about me or my world or what I'm going through.
For me, it's also, especially as you think, without getting into spoilers about what's going to occur later, this is a lot of what this is just establishing is lack of empathy, and that it is very easy to attack and be mean and lack empathy in this environment.
One thing I really liked that people brought up was some of the comments saying that people were drawn to her because it felt like she was singing directly to them. And interestingly enough, I was listening to the No Regrets podcast thing that we have, and someone described Billie Holiday that exact way, that they feel like she is singing directly to them. And so I really like that detail, just to show like people are drawn to singers based on how they make them feel, and Belle is like really making an impact because of that sort of thing.
Well, it also gets back into, like, if you remember in our Fitzcarraldo episode a few episodes back, there's the whole opening sequence where Fitzcarraldo is maniacally trying to get to see Caruso singing in Iquitos. When he finally gets there and he's in the room, he says to the usher, "Oh, see, he was pointing at me," and we were talking about that. But it's very easy when you are connected to something to feel like they are singing directly to you, or that especially in this world of, in this age of parasocial relationships, which is, a lot of what podcasting and everything else is. It's very easy to be like, why I love this podcast? Because it feels like I'm just in a room with friends and they're making the jokes directly with me, and to be separated and not feel like, you're in a room with thousands of other people, but just you and, that person or that group of people, and that intimate, close feeling.
Right. And they definitely convey that really well. So continuing here in the plot, Suzu remains in contact with a group of older choir teachers who were her mother's friends. And so she's in this choir with them, and they're trying to urge her to join in singing, but she's hiding under a table. She's not interested in actually participating. And they are telling her that they really just want her to be happy. But when Suzu asks them, like, how do I do that? How do I be happy? All of these grown women are just completely stumped. They're unable to give a clear answer. It's just a feeling, And so that is something that I thought was really thought-provoking. We can talk about that in a second. And something else that happens around this is Shinobu trying to check on Suzu, and she's getting a little frustrated by it because she feels like she doesn't need to be looked after like they were kids, but he's clearly worried about her because, as we've discussed in the previous section, she's kind of shutting everybody out. So that's happening in reality. And then back in U World, at one of Belle's concerts, she is singing this song called Fama Destinanta. My apologies if that's incorrectly pronounced. So she's dancing in the sky, surrounded by these colorful whales, water droplets. It's like beautiful theatrical performance in like a stadium. And during this concert, we are introduced to a very important character. He is this infamously strong, near unbeatable user that's known in the world called the Dragon. He's also called the Beast. And so he arrives, he kind of interrupts the concert, and the Justices, this vigilante group who seek out troublemakers within the U world, they are chasing after him. They're fighting the Beast. There's a big altercation back and forth, and the Beast is just taking vigilantes out and disrupting the peace according to the vigilante group, and obviously disrupting the whole concert. And Belle is very intrigued by this dragon, but she doesn't really understand why he's so angry, why he's so aggressive. And when she does ask, "Who are you?" he just replies with a very vague, "Don't look at me." And the vigilantes are led by the self-righteous Justin, who plans to unveil the Beast's identity to the public using a specialized program in the form of a green light that's mostly reserved for use owners, but somehow he got his hands on one. But before he gets a chance to actually do that, the Beast takes out more of the vigilantes and he flees the stadium. And Justin swears that he will unveil him someday.
It's funny because you think that maybe you kind of like are starting to pick sides, and you're thinking, well, these must be the good guys, and then it doesn't take long to realize, oh wait, they're actually not really being good. And if anything, the so-called Beast really seems to be hurt and is protecting himself. So you start to see that the big differences start to come out. You mentioned Justin, and I just want to say Justin is another one that has a voice that people might know. Justin is voiced by Chase Crawford. Chase Crawford is best known for his work as Nate Archibald, a character on the series Gossip Girl. Also, he plays the character Kevin Moskowitz, who's also the Deep in the TV series The Boys.
Which The Boys is an awesome series. I love that show. A great satire of superheroes and superhero culture, and the military-industrial complex, and American society, and so many other things. And he does a fantastic job at being a despicable human being on that show. But as a despicable human being, you still occasionally have sympathy for. That he is great.
Something that can't be said for the character Justin, his portrayal of Justin. I never have sympathy for Justin. All the homies hate Justin.
Well, he is the Gaston, analog. So you're meant to dislike him, and like his whole group is one of those where it's like, again, you just have to accept it, similar to some of the other stuff we've talked about, how the U operates. Like, it's not very realistic, because it's basically making the assumption that content moderation doesn't exist. But which is a thing, they don't do, they do as much for civil liability reasons, along with, other legal reasons. Especially, it's interesting that Chase plays a superhero on The Boys, because very much the presentation of the vigilantes and Justin in particular, is supposed to evoke, the heroic superhero imagery, and also it's meant to show how widely loved and embraced, because like he has all these sponsorships, like that come down behind him when he talks, and so it's very much to show that everybody loves Justin and hate the Beast.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think I just want to be clear that Chase Crawford was the English dub actor. And normally we've been kind of going between both, but there really wasn't much information I could find about the actor who played Justin in the Japanese version. But very much the bravado like way that Chase Crawford does it, just like I'm better than you and I know the way, like I know the best way for the society, that kind of thing. Really, it was very interesting to watch it both ways and to kind of hear different portrayals. But I wanted to talk about just the show itself real quick, like the show that Belle did, because the animation in that whole sequence was so beautiful. Like, it was really cool, like the things that could be
Hmm.
done in this virtual world for effects, stage design, that like you just can't do in a reality,
Yeah. No, I mean, like you said, you've got like whales going by as she's singing. Uh, um, some of the singing and stuff. It also kind of reminds me of Fifth Element with the opera sequence in that. So just all very cool stuff.
I will tell you this, that I think it's from this moment on, like if you were to split the movie in half, I'm not saying I didn't like the last half. I'm not going the first half. I'm not going there, but I really really like this movie continues and it gets better and better. I don't know, and for me, as being a newbie in this world, there were some awkward moments, and some of that I think is just intrinsic to this film. Like there are some kind of moments that are a little weird, but I don't know how much of it is also just me adapting to anime, but the second half like was a whole other ride for me that I really really enjoyed. So
And Rob, some of that also sometimes one thing you learn watching anime is it's kind of a reminder that storytelling is not always universal the way we think it is, because uh sometimes you see things like, oh, that's very different because of cultural differences between Japan and the US, or and the differences between Japan and the U.S. are much bigger than, say, even Japan and Germany. So like when we're watching Fitzcarraldo, so you end up sometimes with value dissonance where the values they are reinforcing or espousing via the story sometimes come across as little awkward to us because that's not what we're used to. And sometimes it is stuff we're not comfortable with, and you just have to go like, "Oh, okay, that's their thing." Similar to like what we were talking about with, how they were, how the larger audience as a whole. Like also jumping back just a bit to some of the talk we had at the start of the sequence with Suzu in the real world. So she her friend Shinobu uh, is checking on her, and part of the reason she's so bothered by that is you mentioned she feels like she doesn't need to be looked after, but it's also she feels he is only looking after her out of obligation. It's not so much that he cares for her, has any strong feelings beyond, say, friendship and feeling a little protective, like you might for a younger sister, and feels he needs to look out for her because, this younger sister in his life can't look after herself, and she wants to prove to him she can stand on her own 2 feet, while also dealing with some mixed up emotions in herself about what her true feelings towards him are, because there may be some deeper emotion tied to him that she just doesn't want to admit, or feels like, well, nothing can come from that because I'm not good enough. Uh, so that's all going on with the Shinobu thing. And then, like you'd mentioned, the choir group, that she'd been in and were her mother's friends, but we don't really realize they were her mother's friends until much later in the film. And in this initial time with them, you're on, like, I know on my first watch through, I was going, well, why is she even there if she doesn't want to sing? Like, these aren't peers. What is her connection to this group?
yeah, that was confusing to me as well at first.
In the first place, and then it becomes clearer later on.
Yeah, I think I really liked that slice of life kind of moment. Just like a brief little moment about like what it means to be happy. Like I did really like that. It felt like not necessarily out of place a little bit, but I still really liked what it was kind of hinting at and what it was trying to say. And that's something that Japanese animation and Japanese stories in general really tend to do, is like they do these like philosophical things of like, what does it mean to be happy? What does it mean to love? That kind of thing.
Well, and I also think it's meant to be a bit of a reflection on modern society, that we don't know what it means to be happy. uh
It just happens. We just
yeah,
know when we are.
and and that, we're going to be more likely to point to all these things that, don't give you a real answer, whereas the answer, I think, is what we'll learn later on in the film. And once we learn about their connection to her mother and a bit more about their relationship with her much later in the film, that retroactively makes this a little better scene. But just like if this had been kind of it, this wouldn't have been a great scene. But
Yeah, when you add all the context with it. Yeah, I get you.
yeah. So
And so, obviously, from that scene that we just talked about in the stadium of encountering the dragon, Suzu is very intrigued by him. She wants to understand and learn more about him, why everybody hates him, why he's so aggressive, yada, yada. And so Suzu and Hiro, they're beginning to gather information about him. They're setting up a research base in their old elementary school with like giant screens, lots going on. It's very tech heavy. And they are trying to track down the possible real person. And one person they find is this man named Jelinek, who is an obscure modern artist with tattoos that look like the bruises that match the ones on the dragon. And another guy is this baseball player who never shows his bare skin on his upper body, that apparently has anger issues. And there are a few other possibilities, but eventually they discover in their research also that the dragon is very popular amongst children who consider him to be their hero. And so that's an interesting development. And also, while browsing videos, we're shown this brief clip of a father with his two sons saying it's been tough since their family lost their mom. More on that later, but very early Easter egg for everyone.
So again, she's trying to find the real identity.
Yes,
of this
she's
guy.
trying to find this guy. And in the U world, she does eventually track him down. She tracks him down to this castle where he's living with his 5 guardian AIs. And the dragon / beast, whatever they're called, they're kind of called both in the movie. He tries to turn her away, but Belle is determined to break through to him. She can feel, it's like she knows that he is hiding something, that he has some pain inside of him. And so she decides she's going to write this love song to try to reach him. She's trying to reach him through song. And so as she goes to write it down, she like, also, so she's trying to write this love song. And then also this like very, very teenage thing happens where the entire school is freaking out because word is spreading that Suzu and Shinobu held hands and might be going out. And all of these girls who are very into Shinobu are very upset at the prospect of this. And so Hiro has to step in with Suzu and stop the rumor swiftly, talk into all the different factions of girls in the school to put that to rest. Also in the real world, Suzu is discovering that Ruka, the popular girl, might be into Shinobu as well when she gets a text from her. And so Suzu offers to support her, even though she does have feelings for Shinobu, but she told everyone that she doesn't, basically. It's one of those things where, like Adam was saying before, that she doesn't feel like she's worthy of him, that she's not at the same level, that kind of thing. And so that's all happening between the U world, the real world. And then we also get to see a little more of the Beauty and Beast influences in this next part of the film. Belle
Kristen,
and Dragon go ahead.
Is this part that you just finished describing when Shinobu gets all red and embarrassed?
You might be thinking further down. I think
Okay.
the thing with Ruka and the sports guy, that comes a little later.
I
love
sorry.
that part.
Okay.
You're fine.
Me too. Yeah.
That part that cracks me up. But that's also, we can pause just to mention, like, because there's a lot of moments like that they are really good at portraying youth and just the chaos of when you're a teenager with lots of emotions and lots going on.
Yeah,
completely.
Well, it's also all very Degrassi. That part of it is very, Degrassi, and then you have, the youth stuff going on, and then you have, slightly more, home family drama going on with some of, Suzu's, emotions around her mother and with her mother's friends. So, you've got all these elements kind of cooking together at the same time.
Yeah, you're starting to think you know what's going on. You know when you try to figure out a movie, at this point you think you figure it out, but you got other surprises coming.
Yeah. And so obviously the next part is where we finally see a little more, like, I mean, Adam mentioned the Gaston influence, but this is where I feel like, okay, now they really are doing the Beauty and the Beast thing with the castle, and then Belle and Dragon growing closer because Belle's the only one who actually wants to try to understand him when everybody else is pushing him away. And they grow closer as she visits the castle more and more, and she understands that he is hurting inside and she wants to try to reach him, but he is obviously very closed off, because we, as the people who have viewed this movie, know what happens. So obviously he's very closed off for a good reason, but we don't know that yet. And one time when she's leaving the castle, she has this altercation with Justin and his crew where they're trying to locate the dragon and are trying to get information out of her. But then the dragon swoops in to save her and brings her back to the castle away from everything. And this is where we hear Belle begin to sing her song to him called Lend Me Your Voice. And she, while the song is playing, she's dancing with the dragon in a scene that's very reminiscent of the classic Beauty and the Beast on the big ballroom floor. But then near the end of the song, more scars to begin to form on his back near the end of the dance, and we aren't told why. So one thing I really wanted to bring up, so for me, the scars, when I was first watching this movie, I was like, being a little detective, I was like, what is going on? I'm like, does he get scars every time he like feels love for someone? And it's not that. It's not that intense. But like, where it was very
kind of
trying to
is,
learn
but
and understand it. Yeah.
yeah,
It was very interesting, the mystery of this beast and how things were affecting him.
the one thing for me is the bruises don't look like bruises. They look like tattoos or like artwork or something.
Fictional world, Adam.
I know, but
they're not supposed to be real bruises. It's a metaphor.
But then you go, but you then go, well, this person has, tattoos that look like anyway.
Yeah, you find out exactly why the bruises, that the tattoos look like that. Also, there's an explanation for that. We'll get to it.
I know, but like, if they're not, like, if they're, like, I'm just saying, like, why does everyone immediately knows their bruises, and like, whereas even within this fictional stylized world, like, I would think people would first look at what they actually are and just think it's artwork on the beast. I don't know why people immediately understood them to be bruises.
It does kind of look like a design on the cloak. I will say that, like, just a general design on the cloak, but
right. But again, that's one of those things you just have to shrug and go with it. Sure, fine.
I mean, I guess it could have benefited by someone making a comment. What is that? Bruises? I mean, what is that? Paint?
Stress,
no, I think it's actually bruises, something like that to guide the audience. But
because I mean, all it takes is one person saying, is it bruises? And as we saw in this world, a lot of people, things spread really quick. So really, like you were saying, all it could have taken was one person thinking they were bruises, and then rumors spread that they're bruises, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I really liked this song. I thought it was like a really, really well written song for the movie. I liked that it, because like we'll get to it, but it's described in the movie as a love song, but it doesn't feel like a love song necessarily. It's kind of just like a desire to reach somebody, which is what we've been kind of saying. Like she wants to understand him, she wants to reach him, and I liked the idea of knowing that he's hurting and she just wants to listen instead of pushing him away like everyone else has, which is a big theme in Beauty and the Beast as well. So there is that comparison there.
And this is where I almost feel like they almost hurt themselves a little bit. Because I think the song is great, but especially when you look at this sequence in retrospect,
right?
Once you learn what happened, later in the film, that makes you reevaluate the sequence. That maybe they got too locked in as creators in the whole Beauty and the Beast thing, and the fact that there had to be this sequence and this kind of connection in this way between those characters, even if it would have made more sense to maybe go in a slightly different direction, especially, when the theme, slight spoilers, the theme for the overall film is less romantic love than, empathetic love, the deeper understanding and caring for our fellow human beings. And so, that might have, I think there could have been ways that could have
Yeah,
been
had
done.
they made a couple of small changes, it probably wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah.
Like if they had said, like, when she's talking to the choir people and they're like, "Oh, she's in love, write a love song." But even when they had that whole sequence, she was thinking of Shinobu on
Yeah.
top of the beast. So it's like I feel like she was pulling from her feelings for him into writing the song in a way. So it's weird. Like I wish they had just said, like,
Yeah.
write a song to reach him instead of
But
saying a love song.
well, and some of it is also Hosoda. In some of the stuff I read after the film's release, was actually really happy with how they kind of swerved the expectations of, again, slight spoilers of, the romantic ending between Beauty and the Beast. Uh,
Yeah. Maybe
and,
maybe we wait till the reveal to talk about it more because we probably are getting into, like, we're probably jumping ahead too much.
right, right. But, I was just indicating that I was just bringing that in to indicate that from the creator's point of view, this was meant to be seen as a romantic scene,
which
you
is
know.
which is a choice. But
I
yeah,
Yeah.
we want, yeah. So one other little thing I wanted to mention before we go forward was for people who are fans of Death Note, specifically the main character Light Yagami, they might recognize. They probably won't though because he's making a really silly voice. But Mamoru Miyano, who voices in Death Note, he is one of the little avatar people that's reporting on the Beast during the stuff where they're like basically interviewing kids and understanding. And when I was looking into information about it, I was like, where is Mamoru Miyano in this? Like, I am not finding him anywhere. And it took me until the second watch for me to finally figure out who they were talking about in the like credits, because I was like, I don't even know who that is, and it's like one of the teeny little avatars. So anyway, for other anime geeks like me, that is something that is fun to discover in the film.
Cool.
Yeah. And so we've been talking a bit about how they're trying to figure out who the dragon is in real life. And in the real world, all the possible suspects, the artist guy, the baseball player, they're all being debunked. Nobody can figure out who he is. And within you, Justin is still trying to track down the dragon, track down his hideout. He's interrogating Belle. He's threatening to unveil her identity to the world if she refuses to give up the dragon, of course. And she does refuse, obviously, because she cares for the dragon. And she tells Justin that he doesn't care about justice. He only wants to exert control. And then just before she can get unveiled by Justin, who's very angry that she won't give it up, then the dragon AIs that are with the dragon, they come in to distract Justin so that Belle can get away, but they leave something behind. That is something that will make the rest of the plot go the way it does. So in the real world, Ruka confides to Suzu that she has a crush on Kamishi, not Shinobu. So Suzu helps the two confess their feelings, and this is Rob's scene that he likes. So the couple, they're chatting, they're very like overwhelmed because they like each other. They don't know what to talk about. They find out they're both fans of Belle, and Suzu, knowing that she is Belle, kind of gets embarrassed, freaks out, runs away, and then she runs into Shinobu, who guesses pretty much right away. Like, I guess from context clues, he figures out that Suzu was Belle. But before he can get that confirmation, she runs away. We also have news of the beast dragon being unveiled within the U world because there's the scene of the interrogation, and then we get those moments in the real world, and then when we're back into the U world, there's been an ambush of the hideout of the beast, the dragon, because there was like this little petal thing that was left behind that helped them lead them to the dragon's castle. And because of all these headlines, there's a lot of child fans rushing to defend the dragon, and then adult users are making fun of the kids defending him, citing their low view count as making their opinions irrelevant. Great commentary there. And so, so the intervention of the AIs, like I said, helped them basically find the dragon's castle in the end and burn it down. And Belle is running to the castle to try to find the dragon. And she's trying to plead with him to like run away with her, but instead he runs away from her and continues to run like he's been running. He doesn't want to have anybody close to him. There's a lot going on in this. There's a lot of back and forth between the real world, the you world. But
No, there's a lot going on. Like even though you just described it, it's so much more happening, and
right.
you're feeling all this like tension build coming to a climax.
Yeah, and I really love how it captures, like, in an internet age, like, just how cruel people can be to each other,
Yes.
and just like the idea of like people saying like, oh, these kids just have low view count, they don't matter. Like, these are literal children on the platform, like they're
Mhm.
showing their face. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not. Well, then maybe not. Maybe
Well,
we're
and
seeing their faces, but I don't know.
it's not all children. I mean, you're hearing the voices of
Right.
adults, judging children and other adults based off of things like view counts or how they look or how they performed. And
Hmm.
there's this feeling you get that you can only be worthy of attention and praise if you're at a certain kind of a status.
Yeah, it's again, showing, that lack of empathy, that lack, of, that lashing out and being mean to others is, once again being highlighted, with that little bit. And then you also have, the whole, uh, Degrassi thing, where you've got like a quadrihedron kind of thing where Suzu thinks Ruka is into Shinobu, and Ruka thinks Suzu is into Kamishin, and but Ruka's actually into Kamishin, and sorting out, will you go out with me, yes or no, is kind of fun.
And everything is much more dramatic in Japanese anime when it comes to dating, and like the way that they view
Yeah.
dating and even physical affection is completely different than we do in America. Like the
Yeah.
idea of even holding someone's hand is a whole production. And so that's
Yeah.
why like this interaction is like I'm sure for Rob that you like have not seen many Japanese things like this. So like it's really funny, but also it's so common in these type of things to just have two people just completely
Yeah.
overwhelmed at the idea of liking somebody, let
Yeah.
alone holding their hand, whatever.
And
Oh, it's hilarious.
yeah, well, and I couldn't tell you how much of that is reality and reality being reflected in the media versus just a trope or a convention of the media that is not reflective of reality, which would be interesting for someone who knows more than us about Japanese society, especially current day Japanese society, because it also is one of those things. It could have been, reflective of the society 30 years ago and isn't today.
I definitely think they're still a little bit more conservative when it comes to
Yeah.
things. But yeah, like it really just depends. But when you even see like Japanese people interviewed on the streets and stuff, when they're
Mhm.
asked like, "Oh, what do you think of like how American society is and stuff?" and they talk about how they are surprised at how free we are over here, how open we are to just doing literally
Yeah.
anything and just whatever. So I definitely think they still have like a very conservative side to them, but maybe this is a little more
Mhm.
over dramatized for comedy. But
Yeah.
definitely when it comes to dating and stuff, I think that it's a little
Yeah.
regressed in a way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well,
definitely fun. It's definitely once again another section just showing the highs
yeah.
and lows of youth, of being a teenager,
Um,
and the smallest thing can feel like the biggest thing. That kind of.
yeah. No, absolutely, and they do it well, and it's kind of
Mhm.
fun. One more me over analyzing, being too realist.
Maybe
Uh,
not.
well, no, no,
Maybe
no,
we
no.
don't need it.
Well, when they're going through the whole debunking sequence, the baseball player comes out and says, "Well, I
Mhm.
got these scars from, like I had a series of injuries or an illness or something in childhood that I had to go through." And there is no way in hell a player would rise to that level and that not be well known information. Like, even if you wanted to keep it private, like, because I mean, like especially when they are evaluating players, like they are evaluated like pieces of meat. You also have, reporters in locker rooms. There is no way like this would have been reported on because like it would have been reported on as like, well, teams are very concerned. You know, he had all these procedures done when he was a child, and they're wondering how he's going to hold up against the rigors of a season. You know, when they're drafting, like this would have been well known, and he wouldn't have been able to hide it. That
Okay, but yes,
Why
at
do
this point, I already
well,
know.
why does that add to anything, though? Who cares, man? Like,
It's supposed
and
to
I
be
don't
the
even know. Is
process
he
of
supposed to be
elimination.
from the? Is he supposed to be from the U.S. or I don't even
Yeah,
know?
no,
Because like maybe in Japan, maybe they can keep that kind of thing under wraps. Who knows?
Kristen, it's just one of those things that I'm bringing it up because it's one of those things that immediately popped into my head as I'm watching the film, you know, and we're giving our thoughts. Like it wasn't even like a further reflection or a second watch thing. It's I am watching this and these are my immediate first thoughts. Like, what, you know, it's just to me that takes me out of the immersion in the film, you know.
And so the audience knows the bigger point of that is we're eliminating
Him
I guess as we're finding out who
As a
the
suspect.
beast
isn't
really
the
is.
beast, but
Yeah, we're also eliminating the other suspects.
but again, it's also, you know, another reason we should maybe have more empathy for people, you know, as you understand what he had to go through.
Right,
So,
because
That's true.
you never know what people are going through, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
right, it's, you know,
And we also I didn't include it in the plot description, but like the artist guy was basically a fraud and was like creating, like made these tattoos on purpose to match the beast. Like he was looking for the recognition for his artwork and
Mhm.
everything.
well,
So like he was full of it the whole time.
he was doing a lot of fraudy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a fun, creepy internet guy.
Yeah, that was an interesting part. So all of that just further adds to the fact that Suzu and Hiro really want to find the dragon's real identity before Justin can expose him, before everyone in the U can find out who he is, because they have a feeling that this guy does not want to be exposed and should not be exposed. And so Suzu is trying to locate the dragon after this ambush. But then as soon as people see Belle, they're swarming her, they're begging her to sing again. And it's revealed around here that what we were talking about before about her mother's friends, the people in the choir, they are her mother's friends, first off, and then also that they knew that she was Belle all along. It seems like she thinks it's a secret, and it seems like everybody in this town knows that she was Belle all along. And so now that things are getting crazy, they decide they want to step in, and they are, like, a lot of her friends and stuff are all congregating together at this elementary school. And while they're trying to figure out the identity, Suzu finds this live feed of a boy named Tomo who is singing the song that she sang to the dragon. And she's like, only the dragon would know this song. How does this kid know the song? And through that feed, we find out the big bombshell that the dragon is a third-year junior high school student named Kei, who is being physically and verbally abused by his father. And so when his father comes into the room, Kei protects his brother Tomo. He basically like stands over top of him and keeps him from all of it, doesn't want him to hear the horrible things the father is saying. He endures all of that pain of the abuse, and that is what gives the dragon his unbeatable strength within you. Because it's like, once again, it's pulling from inside. So it's like he has all this anger that he has inside that he is utilizing within this world. And so that is a really big development. And Suzu is trying to contact Kei once the abusive father leaves the room, offering to help, but he does not believe that she is Belle, first off. And he generally distrusts anyone who offers help because nobody has ever followed through. There's this really chilling scene that I thought was like really a good part of it, where he was just like saying like, everyone wants to help and help and help and help, but they don't do anything. It never goes anywhere. Everyone says that they want to do something, but they don't actually do anything. And it was like, both Japanese and English, both of them, like, it just like punches you in the gut. I absolutely like was taken by that whole scene. And obviously, like,
that
it's
was
intense.
good.
Yeah.
And there you had clues that there was something like this kind of happening and a few other moments before this, but when you got the verification that the abuse was happening, and how how he was living and protecting his brother, it's cool because every time I thought that there was a predictable moment, even when it was partially true to be predictable, it was done so differently in a way that I didn't predict that it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, no, like Rob, to your point, like I had been kind of expecting this reveal for a while. point we get
Mhm.
to it. But what struck me was, and again, this is maybe cultural differences or whatever. Like because like by this point you've kind of already realized that, the kid is kind of like John Bender in Breakfast Club. That he
Mhm.
comes from an abusive home and is lashing out because of that. Abused people abuse others, kind of thing. And but then what I was, and so like when we get to the sequence with the father where it's going to confirm the abuse, like I'm expecting like a really hard to watch sequence where like you are actually seeing him beat the kids,
Yes.
and you don't get that. It is almost a bizarre sequence to me, where like the father comes in and he's almost like muted in how he is going about, like especially at first, about like I am trying to work, and then like him flying into a rage is like almost robotically moving his hand and pushing a vase off the table,
Right.
and so I don't know if that's cultural, if there was some reason they didn't feel comfortable going full bore into it, but it was very much out of how naturalistic movement and everything else was. This sequence, really stood out because it didn't quite seem to match what I would have expected from the scene, but then it also didn't match some of the rest. So,
I,
but
I
it was
recognize.
still very effective. It's just, I was like, oh,
No, I know exactly what you're talking about,
yeah.
and I don't know like if it's during the moment or I just kind of retro filled in the gaps, but I felt like it was another example of not showing a whole lot and slowing things down. You know how when you go through something traumatic, time seems to slow down. It
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. Well, but I
And I
mean,
don't
like,
think you need to show something super gruesome to get your point across. I feel like they get
Right.
their point across with what they do show.
yeah, no, it's just, there's also the, unfortunate devil's advocate that I've heard around this kind of thing where, people might say, oh, what they're going through actually isn't that bad. Like what he's actually saying to them isn't that awful. And the main violence you see is later on. And, it's literally a scratch on the face, the main physical violence. And so, you know, uh,
We are
people,
shown a really small facet of the abuse.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like what
I
we don't know the full story. We don't get the full
well,
picture.
but
So
the
like, and I
movie's
get the
job
devil's
is to
advocate.
show that. Yeah, but
I do get what you're saying. I do, but I also think like if they had shown some more explicit stuff, I think the Japanese audiences would not have taken
Yeah.
well
yeah,
It
because
no,
they
would
know.
it
and
would
that's
have
where I'm
changed the
accepting it's a cultural difference,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would have changed the
that
rating.
we also, that
Yeah, the rating.
there are ways to show it and imply it without showing it. A lot of other, you know, uh, uh, films and properties have done that. It's just it felt like they were going to go with the explicit, we're going to show it to you route, and not just imply it. And then, they did this version of it, which, feels like they didn't feel comfortable going full bore. So that's where it was just that
Yeah.
strangeness of I'm not sure what you're doing here kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like
Any
I said, some
watcher
of
will.
the acting and the movement felt, you know, the animation of the characters even felt different and more awkward. Like I said, just that it felt like more robotic, not like a natural rage, like mechanically going through the motions in the even within the animation. So again, I don't know if there's something else going on about, that change that sequence, but that's just what I was thinking when watching it.
I think
Yeah,
this
and
moment and
there.
some of the other moments that we debated earlier, I'd love to see what people, the millions of our followers, I'd love to get their feedback on what they thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there like it was interesting for me watching it the second time because I saw when I knew where the story was going, I was able to notice the hints of what was to come later. Like it hadn't even occurred to me that the little angel avatar that we see within the castle that is like leading Belle to the castle and just being around a lot is actually supposed to be Tomo. And so that is something that I hadn't even occurred to me until I was like looking into credits and things like that. So I thought that was a really good detail, especially because there is a part where the Beast is comforting the little angel avatar, saying, you know, like, we're safe, things are going to be okay, they're not going to find us, because that's just a typical thing that he does. He protects his younger brother from anything that their father might say or do.
Well, and it's easy to miss that because all the other sprites that are like that avatar are dismissed around the Beast in the castle are dismissed as AI. So literally, I didn't realize that was Tomo until you were just saying it now, and then it makes total sense. But I had literally I would have, if you had asked me, like if we were having a test, you know, on this, I would have said it was AI.
Yeah, and I hadn't even found it until I was looking into more detail after the film. So I really like the little details they have there. And so now here is.
Well,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, and the detail with the mother's friends, and like you know, you talk about like things that really move your heart, and you know, give you all the feels. You know, when you realize they knew, and you know, again, sort of like the father had been unsure of how to break through that shell for her, and you know that they're willing to do anything for her. You know, and how quickly they rally for her is, you know, was really great. So
now here we go. The elephant in the room. Say what you would like to say about what you were wanting to say.
Well, I mean, so I know it says third year junior high and she's third year high school, you know, so there's only like a 3-year age difference, but it's still awkward enough that they even acknowledge it within the film. Like when they meet in real life, you know, that's when they kind of realize, oh, there's not going to be anything romantic here. You know, despite.
It's like I feel like once that she realizes the context of who he is and this situation, it's like completely changes everything. Like it's because like even so, I feel like it was never quite romantic. For me, that I know that the director intended it to be romantic, and I think that's really weird of him. I don't like that. I understand it's because it was trying to do the Beauty and the Beast thing, but I think had he not done a romantic, it would have made for a little bit more seamless of a film, because I think because it flips the script as soon as she sets that boundary when she discovers who he really is. Like it's not romance is like off the table at that point. And I think that I'm really glad they did that, because a lot of unfortunately a lot of Japanese work does not do that. So I appreciate that they.
I can even point to a couple American works, at least from the 90s, like Blank Check or Holy Matrimony, where you know a big part of the story involves. You know, teenage, you know, like junior high age boys with adult women, you know.
Right. And it's just like, and like, the age range and stuff, because they only have like 3 years in high school versus 4. So it's like slightly different. But even then, like, it's strange that they chose to have this reveal, but also do like the romantic sequence and try to subvert the audiences. And to be fair, I don't know, maybe the age gap isn't as big of a deal in Japan. It should be, but you know, maybe it's not as big of a deal because
I mean, like even here in the US, it wouldn't be unusual for a senior to date a freshman, you know, which is about the age gap you're talking about.
Right.
Really. You know,
it was definitely like a little weird when I was in high school, but people still did it, you know?
Yeah. You know, there are, you know, different cultural values in Japan, but again, they, you know, immediately shut it down. And then it's more about her immediately going into protective mode. Like I have to protect these two kids, these two younger people with all my power. And, you know, it's not only empathy for them, but, you know, especially as she's going through it, part of her character arc is starting to gain empathy and understanding for her mother and what her mother did.
It wasn't until
Exactly.
you said that, Adam, that I'm just not realizing that she's actually fitting the role that her mom, like she's being more like her mom, because
Yes,
Right.
that's how her mom
exactly.
Yeah.
died.
Well,
She's finally understanding where her mother is coming from, why she did what
Hmm.
she did.
Right. Which again gets back into why, again, you talk about like small changes that could improve things. Um, if she was struggling to reconcile that idea of how my mother could be a hero when she abandoned me,
Hmm.
everyone else says she's a hero, but she abandoned me, and then understand that desire to protect others, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like, oh, now I get it, Mom, I'm so sorry I ever had these hard feelings for you. I miss you so much, kind of thing. And she kind of gets there. It's just,
It's more like
it wasn't,
implied.
well, it's not just that it's implied, it was never her feelings towards her mother were never in conflict with anything else. She just had negative feelings towards her mother, and now those are resolved. As opposed to those negative feelings were in conflict with being told she should feel positively about what her mother did. You know, uh, so
Yeah.
again, it's a small thing, but again, but you're talking about just that they're even connected in that way is very good storytelling. That again translates very well.
Yeah. And obviously this is a big shock to the entire plot. I feel like it changes the trajectory of the plot, where you think it's going, which, I mean, even though it's a weird choice, I do understand the director's intention of wanting to subvert expectation. I like it. I just wish he'd done it a little different. That being said, next up in the plot is Suzu trying to figure out, how can I reach K, because he is shutting me out. He doesn't believe that I'm Belle. He doesn't want to talk to me. How can I get through to him? And so she is talking with all of the group of people, the choir women, Shinobu, Ruka, Kaminshin. They're all coming together with Hiro to help encourage her to reveal herself and sing as herself in the world of you to gain Kei's trust. Shinobu is very much like the head, like the spearheading this, saying that he would be more open to talk to her if she shows her true self. Like, if you want him to open up to you, you have to open yourself up. And so she decides she's going to unveil herself in the world of you. And obviously, everyone's very shocked that she's just an ordinary schoolgirl. And she sings A Million Miles Away as herself. And everyone watching is really moved by her performance, very inspired. And as she's singing, like near the end, just kind of harmonizing, singing laws and laws over, everyone is joining in. And it's like, as she sings, there's this light forming on her chest. And then as everyone else sings, there's lights forming along them. And the light is just growing and spreading throughout this world. It's an absolutely stunning, beautiful sequence.
No, it's dope. It is so good.
It's so beautiful. I was like getting emotional during this bit. I don't know. Sometimes singing hit right just really gets to me.
No,
So I
it's to me like
really,
that
really
that
love this.
chorus when the
Mm-hmm.
crowd starts to back up the main chorus, like the refrain. It's so powerful. It's so like it was the best part. Like this whole ending, this last half hour, I loved it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was really, really moved by it. And just like the intention behind it, knowing that she is trying to reach somebody. And that's what she's been
Hmm.
doing this whole movie. She's trying to reach him. And other people are seeing her intention and they are responding to it. They are feeding off of it. And I really, really love it. And so this performance gets Kei to trust her. And so they contact her again. But before Kei can actually tell Suzu the address, the boy's father is seeing evidence on his phone of the abuse that's been posted online. And so he comes in, he's pissed, and he turns off the computer. And according to Wikipedia, terminates their internet connection. So that's why they can't contact her. And she is trying to figure out a way to get to them. And it's like, what can I do? What can I do? And so we already kind of talked about the performance. Did you guys have anything else to add before I got into this next bit?
What I liked with that whole sequence is especially like after she reveals herself, like the audience is stunned. They're like, "Oh, she's just a young girl." And again, you start to get empathy from people. Like even the one singer they showed at the beginning, who was very, jealous of her. and said she wasn't much, she wasn't that good. She is like, oh my God, she's so young. And then she is one of the people who starts leading the singing when Belle can't keep going, you know. And so, she is kind of on her side as well, which again is, getting into that, when Belle is revealed, suddenly that other person can see her more as a human being and have empathy and compassion for her.
And Peggy also, I think, says that she said that she is like me. So I think that Peggy is also just like a regular schoolgirl, like, just a regular girl that is doing this persona and being more confident within this world. So yeah, I really, really liked that sequence. It was really well done. And obviously, because of it, like, because they were so close to finding out where they were and they didn't quite get the address, they all rally together, this group of people, and they are using context clues to try to deduce where the hometown is. And from like one picture that Kamishine has is like the group photo that they took as a team or something, like he's able to like locate the buildings that are also showing and like the bells in the certain area of Japan that like happen in certain prefectures. And so they are able to locate where he is. And he's in Kawasaki, Kanagawa, near Tokyo. And so the mom's friends are trying to call the police and get some kind of intervention to go and help the kids at the house, but they are told that they have to wait 48 hours before they can actually like go and do anything about it. And so Suzu's like, I can't wait 48 hours. These kids are in danger. They need my help. And so she jumps on a train to locate them on her own. And so on the train, we also see this really good moment where she is exchanging messages with her father. They finally are talking, likely this deeply for the first time since her mother died. And it's kind of reaching an understanding with each other. I really like that they included that in there. And so once she's actually to Kawasaki, she finds the boys. She's running on the different streets trying to locate them, and she finds them on the street. And before they can really get to talking much, the father follows them out. And Suzu protects them from their father. She's wrapping herself completely around them and facing the abusive man head on. And the abusive guy, when he's looking at this young girl, this 17-year-old that is not scared of him, she's staring him down. She's not afraid. And it's like this resolve shakes him. And the father breaks down and runs away. And then, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't think it's even just the resolve, because he scratches her face. Because at first she is doing kind of the similar thing where she has them wrapped in her arms, right, with her back to him, and he is pawing at them, and he scratches her face trying to pull her off of them. And so then she turns around with her arms widespread like you're not getting through, and he sees that scratch on her face, and he looks at the blood on his hands, and that's almost like the first time he realizes the damage he has done, and whether it's because he realizes he has physically harmed someone outside of his family and there are going to be more consequences for that, or just because he is finally dawning on him the physical damage he is doing. I think that's what leads to him running away.
I also kind of interpreted it as like him realizing that, like, his two kids are like cowering from him, and here is this girl who is not cowering from him. And I think it's like it's a moment where, like what you were saying, but I think it also is a part of like, here is this person who's not backing down for me. I don't have the power that I think that I do.
Mm-hmm. And well, I think that the strength that she shows by, they show her just showing her face with her eyes directly looking at him, but in a different sort of way, like with strength, with defiance, and with sort of like justice in her eyes. That's very powerful. And her face is bleeding. Her eyes are directly looking at him, and he is coming to realization. It was a dope moment. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really like that, like, after the dad runs away, Kay says, like, he's found the resolve to kind of stand up for himself. Like, seeing her stand up for him, it makes him feel confident that he can do it for himself. And that's really cool. And I really like that Suzu also learns something from this experience, this inner strength to be herself without the persona, to protect others, empathy, what we've been saying, the importance of empathy for others. And it's like they both learn from this experience. And even though it's not a romantic thing, they still care for each other. And it's very clear that she wants to protect them. And it's not like, I really, it's something I was looking at a Letterboxd review and it made me laugh because someone was like, dude said, I love you so much. And she said, thanks. But it's like, yeah, she needed to say thanks because you're a child. You're like 14 years old, my guy. But yeah, like, because like we were saying, she sets the boundary, like that she like cares for them deeply, but not like that. And I really like that they make that distinction. And so the last thing that happens in the film is Suzu and her father warmly greeting each other at the station when she comes home. And Shinobu praises Suzu for her bravery, deciding that she no longer needs his protection, finally feels free to be real friends, maybe more. And the movie ends with Suzu finally joining in to sing a song with the choir of her mother's friends as herself. You know, it's interesting when you watch the end scene in Japanese versus English, because in English, they make it seem like that Shinobu wants to pursue something romantically. But in the Japanese one, they make it sound like he basically says we can finally be real friends. And I'm like, huh, that's two different meanings, very different, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I put it as both, because it's like, you know, up to interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Wayne's World multiple endings. Okay, now we're going to do the mega happy ending.
Right. So something that I was like trying to look at information about like how abuse can be reported in Japan versus US and everything. And like, I was even surprised at like, so like the 48-hour thing is like sort of kind of even a thing in the US, like where it's like they can't, because of like lack of, I think the problem in Japan is that they don't have enough people working in a child protection agency to be able to go in a swift manner. So like that is why the 48-hour thing. Because at first when I heard that, I was like, "What are you kidding me?" And then I was like looking into it, and it's unfortunately something that happens a lot.
I think one of the reasons why is because a number of domestic disputes between husband and wives where they use kids as leverage and just basically use them. It occurs too often in the heat of the moment, and that's partially one of the reasons why. And also the other partial reason is that actual mistakes, you know, like literally mistakes where like the child was picked up by an aunt or uncle and they forgot to inform the parents. Those type of things happen.
Right. And like and they also, I think Japan is also really insistent on trying to keep kids with their parents, like by a lot of means, which is like unfortunate. Like even if it's like not a great situation, they like when I was looking into research, it's the culture there is that parents should be with their kids. Like kids should be with their parents, not someone else, like not a foster situation.
No, but even here in the U.S., it's pretty hard to get your kids taken away. You know, once they are taken away, it can be very hard to get them back. But
yeah,
you know,
a lot of
but like especially once like you dive into it, it's really hard to figure out what the best way to handle any of this stuff is. You know, especially on a policy, you know, legal standpoint. You know, like that gets really tough. But
I do wish they would have done something. I wish there would have at least been a comment that they were looking into him more or something. Because like it's nice that Kay said he has the resolve to stand up for himself, but I wanted the abusive dad to at least get investigated at the end.
yeah,
But you know,
or like the kids are now living with Suzu
right,
and her father
somewhere safe.
You know what? While their father goes to therapy or something,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. I wanted a little bit more from that ending, just a little bit more like to feel like those kids are safe, because one protection thing isn't necessarily going to fix everything. But I do like the intention behind it for sure.
Yeah. You know, it was a good ending, and you know, overall, really enjoyed it, and was glad you brought it to us, because this is one I probably would not have checked out. I had not heard of it until you brought it to us. So,
Yeah, I really wanted to. I've been wanting to watch this movie for a couple years. And then when we were thinking like movies related to music in some way in the beginning, I was like, well, wouldn't it be so cool if I could watch this for work? Because I've been wanting to see it for a couple years now. And really, really glad to have watched it. I really enjoyed this movie.
Here, I think we can wrap up, our thoughts and feelings on the film itself.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I really enjoy the film. Like I was saying, there's really so much to unpack in this film. It's really emotional. I really like the story it tries to convey. I think it was really unique and different than a lot of things that I see. And really had no idea the direction this was going to go. When I picked this movie, I was like, oh, just like a fun little movie where she's a pop star in the fake world. Like I had no idea the direction this was going to go. So that was an interesting surprise, but I did really like the direction it went. And I don't, it might seem like a high rating, but I gave it like a 4.5 out of 5. I really liked this movie.
Yeah. No, I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it did some clever things. We talked about some of the spots where it maybe didn't always stick the landing, but overall it was really good. It also let me look into the rest of Hosoda's work, so that was cool. I'm glad we got the chance to watch it. So
I go with a I go with a 3.5 out of 5, but it's really kind of leaning more towards the 5 than it is going down to 3. It was so much better than I expected. I'll be honest with you. I thought in the first half of the movie, I thought that it was a little bumpy for me, and then I thought maybe is this going to be a teenage girl's favorite movie where I'm just going to just gag?
Rob, you could say it. Is it going to be High School Musical all over again?
But listen, High School Musical is a treasure. It's a national treasure.
No, but Kristen, that's exactly what I'm getting to. Is Rob? That was practically torture for Rob to get.
It was torture.
I'm just going to pick a teenage girl movie every single time now because we need some estrogen in this podcast.
So okay, when you put it like that, I was prepared for torture. And I was pleasantly surprised not to be tortured once.
Yeah.
Very good.
Definitely glad you chose this, Kristen, because like I said, this is not one I would have checked out normally. So thanks so much.
It definitely got the attention of my kids when I was watching it. They're like, yeah, what are you doing watching this? They were asking me all kinds of questions.
It's like, wait, you have a podcast? Well, that was the movie and our thoughts. But what did the far-off, distant world of 2021 think of it? It would end up making over 6.53 billion yen, around $60 million US dollars, at the Japanese box office. And it was the third highest grossing film of the year. It was released in the US in January of 2022 and ultimately made another $4 million, bringing the worldwide reported total to over $64 million. It was also a hit with critics, earning a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, this is the part where I would tell you all the things that Mamoru Hosoda has done since Belle was released, but the answer to that is nothing, at least officially. Now, normally on the show, that's because the person is dead or retired or something. In this case, it's because this is the most recent film we have covered, and he just hasn't announced anything at this time. He could be working on a follow-up, and we just don't know yet. Only people listening in the future do. So drop us a line from the future and let us know what Hosoda gets up to. And some betting tips, since you're future people and all. And that's it, really. This whole aftermath thing section really only works, when it's an older movie and there's stuff afterward to talk about. So before we go to the outro, any final thoughts you want to say about the thing?
Like you were saying, there's nothing officially yet, but what we were talking about in part 1, that animation things take a while. So there is a chance that he does have something in the works, but it's at the very beginning of a longer process. So hopefully we
Yeah.
get something from him soon. I definitely want to check out something, whatever he comes out with next. And it is different from his old work, but I definitely want to check out some of those older
Yeah.
works.
No, definitely recommend, people not only check out Belle, but check out his other works. As much as I enjoyed Belle, and I did really enjoy it, I would still say I kind of hedged on this because I didn't want to give it away in part one. The Boy and the Beast is my favorite of all the four of his movies that I've seen so far. Belle would probably be number two, followed closely by The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. All those three are fairly close together. Mirai is a little lower down from those for me. It's still very good. It just didn't hit me quite the same way the other ones did. Well, that was the movie and our thoughts, but we want to know what you think. Tell us all the things we got right, all the things we got totally wrong, and everything in between. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do that in the comments. Spotify also has comments these days. If you're not listening to us on one of those, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Savage Movie Nights. That's Savage Movie Nights with the S at the end, which is different than everywhere else. Follow us on those to stay up to date on the latest with the show, and drop in the comments to share your thoughts. Now that we've ventured into the U, fulfilled our pop star dreams, and discovered the empathy for others, it's time to look at what is next. And next, we have to keep another child safe, go on the run, and stay ahead of the mob. Because we're talking all about the 1980 John Cassavetes classic Gloria, starring Gina Rollins. Gloria is available to stream for free on Tubi, and is available to buy and rent from Apple, Amazon, and Google. You can also get a good old-fashioned DVD or Blu-ray, but however you get it, check it out and come right back here next month to listen to us talk all about it. Thanks so much to our editor, Javi, and the entire Savage Content team. Thanks so much to my co-hosts, Rob and Kristen. Thanks so much to our sponsor, No Regrets, the spirit and music of Billie Holiday. And most importantly, thanks so much to all of you for listening. Please give us 5 stars and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, a follow, ring the bell, drop into the comments, all the good YouTube things. I've been your host, Adam, and we'll see you next time on the Savage Movie Night Podcast.